You can't go out playing golf having fun.
Fun. Senor, you've obviously never played Wingfoot.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
You've got to be kidding me, Vegas. On Monday night. There's my picks for this week. Now, if you want next week's picks, I can give you those by Friday.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wingfoot Locks, brought to you by Wingfoot Sports. We are back and better than ever, and I hope for you that you stop listening right before we got to the lock of the week last week, because otherwise we had a fantastic week other than the, what do we call it, rotten sushi, Chris, that is the Miami Dolphins. Greg, you had said that we will bet against the Dolphins every single game this season blind. We went against that. And so from now on, we will bet against the Dolphins every single game this season blind. That is an oath. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Get back to the principles.
Yes.
Very well.
Oh, boy. All right, so with that, let's just get right to it because it's always better that way. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals against the Cincinnati Bengals this week. There's a big issue in this one. We're dealing with a catastrophic loss for the Arizona Cardinals. Guys, who wants to take this one first?
Yeah, I'll start this one off. So basically, I like the 3 points to begin with. When you're dealing with two bad teams, I can't really tell which team is worse since he's going to come off the short week here. I think that'll negate the cross-country travel. But really, any sort of galvanizing event like the death of an owner, going to play inspired football. Everyone's going to rally around. It's kind of one of those, enthusiasm, win one for the owner type of situations. So, coming from a guy who can't stand the movie Rudy, I do believe in these type of, energy and enthusiasm philosophies in a game, just like if there's any sort of, adverse event or strange travel for a team with multiple road games. I like these type of bring the team together type of events where I'm sure they've been, sharing a lot of feelings this week and really going to come out inspired.
You're really bringing sharing feelings into a football pick.
These guys are going to get close from this, and they've got a communal effort going on right now. So. Couple of injuries on the wide receivers for the Cardinals, but there's also injuries from on the Bengals side of things, losing John Ross. So again, it's not strictly the galvanizing events. I'm getting 3, or if you got it early, you get it at 3.5, right? So if I get 3.5 going on a bad team against another bad team, I'll take the points.
Fair enough. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I agree with everything Greg said on this one, and I'm going to the biggest angle on this game is definitely the win one for the Gipper angle. The owner passing away is definitely going to galvanize them. If you remember when the Giants had an owner passed away, they came out and they blew somebody out by put a 40 burger up on the board and took care of business. And that's usually the way it goes. Not to mention the Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. Lately, that guy's more like a pink water gun. So never backing that, not backing that guy anytime soon.
I like it. All right, listen, guys, I can't argue with the pick. I think John Ross has been the only thing that the Bengals offense has had going for them at all this season. So I think missing him is going to be obviously a big loss. And I think when you're coming off that game, if they couldn't get up for a division game against the Steelers, where they have their backup quarterback in, that game wasn't even close, and that's going to be your most competitive game of the year. I look at them as basically just packing it in at this point. And like you said, the Cardinals have something to play for, and they still have a little bit more hope with that rookie quarterback. So I'll go with them and say they're trending up. Well, if it's possible, the Bengals are trending down toward the Dolphins at the rock bottom of the league. All right, so the next game on our slate, the New England Patriots are laying 15.5 as they visit the Washington Redskins. Chris, you're on the Pats in this one.
Yeah, I like the Pats here this week. These big point spreads haven't been faring well for us lately, and they scare me a little bit. But, I mean, you got to just call a spade here. The Washington Redskins played the Giants last week, okay? The Giants' defense is atrocious. It's abominable. I've seen them in person, live at a game, and I'm telling you that defense is lost. They don't have talent. They don't have scheme. They're lost, okay? And they look like world beaters against Washington. Pick sixes, this and that. What's going to happen when they play the Patriots and Bill Belichick, okay? They are going to just completely shut them down, okay? It hasn't been set in stone yet what quarterback they're going with. I'd be shocked if they're not going with the rookie. I figured once you put your toe in that water and bring him in, it's hard to put him right back to the bench.
I want to talk about that for a second because what a bad not Jay Gruden is a terrible coach, and man, did he just prove it last week. Could you have put your quarterback in a worse situation?
Yeah, no, that's brutal. You can't do that to a kid. That's brutal. And now they're kind of committed where I think they're going to have to bring him back. And now you're going in your second game up against Belichick and the Patriots, and you got no help anywhere on that squad. How the Patriots don't win this game by 3 scores is mind-boggling. And now they're bringing in Nugent as their kicker because Gostowski's down for the year. So what does that tell you? Belichick ain't going to kick. He's going to pump it in the end zone all day long. He ain't going to want to play around with that.
That's I love that take.
And misses an early kick. Nugent comes in early, misses an early kick. They'll just score touchdowns all week. They'll cut Nugent and go get somebody else after the game.
I really love that. That is an awesome take. Just thinking about the fact that Gostkowski's not going to be out there, and so maybe he's a little he's a little more hesitant to kick. They go for it on a 4th and short. They push the ball a little bit more than they used to, and that's definitely Belichickian to do something like that.
And Nugent's been cut from his 7 last places. Was he going to come to the Patriots all of a sudden and be a great kicker? I mean, he's
probably.
So then, on top of all that, I'm looking at the numbers, and since 1980, the Skins are 3-22 when they're underdogs of 10 points or more. So those are big swing numbers in our favor. The Pats are 15-5 straight up against the NFC since 2014, and they're 25-0, 25-0 under Belichick straight up when favored by 14 or more. And 10-0 straight up and 8-2 against the spread when favored by 14 or more in the last 5 years. Those are dominating numbers.
Wow.
That with a rookie quarterback, with a terrible Washington team, it's just hard not to take the Pats laying points here.
I got a question for you guys, Greg, because I know there's a play that you like in this too, and we'll get to that in just a second. But when you win the Super Bowl, you're supposed to have one of the toughest schedules in the NFL the next year, right? This year, the Patriots will have played in their first 5 games the Washington Redskins, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets with a 3rd-string quarterback. Does it get any easier than that in your first 5 games? And look, obviously Pittsburgh, not what they used to be this year.
They have the Redskins, now the Giants next week, and then the Jets. So it's not changing any either. And so this is weird.
Yeah.
Weird. That's a good way of putting it, Greg.
Yeah, I can't explain it.
This is pretty brutal. All right, with that being said, 15.5 is a lot of points. Greg, you have a play in this game, not necessarily on the Pats, though.
Yeah. So very similar to 2 weeks ago, the same type of game that it was against the Jets, right? So 2 weeks ago, we talked about how we don't see the Jets scoring. The only reason some people would have pushed with that at an under 44 would have been the 2 spotted touchdowns that they gave the Jets. So same type of you look at one of the worst defenses for the Giants, probably bottom 5 easily. The Patriots are top 3 on D. I don't see how the Redskins score unless the Patriots spot them 2 touchdowns, which I don't see is going to happen. So, 31-6, 31-7, 34-7. I like the under on this and just take the air out of the ball, run the ball down the field. If they're not kicking field goals, that's a good way to eat 5 minutes off the clock. Give the ball back on the 25 to the other team, keep 3 points off the board, right? Or if they're not efficient at kicking field goals, those 3 points can make a difference. So I like that.
The one thing I worry about here is defensive touchdowns by the Patriots and them going and putting on one of those like 54-7 games or 54-3 games, which I feel like they do once or twice a year. So that could be interesting. I think the fact that you saw Belichick try and get Brady some rest, bringing in the rookie quarterback from Auburn for that one play, and he throws the pick six.
Yeah, that's not happening on ball. That's not happening on ball. That was a quick project.
Yeah, I think that was pretty interesting. And forgive me, I can't think of his name right now, but he's probably the quarterback of the future. Stidham, yes, Jared Stidham. Thank you.
And I like Greg's take on the under, but I'm telling you, if he puts in Nugent early, Nugent misses a kick, big kick, small kick, any kind of kick. You know what Belichick's going to do? He's going to steer away, and they're going to start pumping in touchdowns, and I wouldn't be surprised they put up 40.
All right. Well, listen, with that being said, we're talking a lot about the Giants in that game and how they looked against the Washington Redskins. So I'll go with my favorite pick of the week. I've been riding the Giants the last couple of weeks. I am backing up the truck against them this week as they take on the Minnesota Vikings. They are getting that's the big Brinks truck that's backing up. That's going to go against the Giants this week. Vikings giving 5 on the road here, but I think you guys said it. That Giants defense right now is getting a lot of praise, talking about how much they've improved. Daniel Jones even getting a lot of praise. In my opinion, he didn't look that good against Washington. Thank you.
He threw 2 picks. You ain't throwing 2 picks against Minnesota or a good defense and surviving. He got away with those 2 picks because
and not only that,
he
made some other mistakes in that game that I think he got away with. And the Giants' defense scored 7 of those points. Let's not forget, with Jabril Peppers obviously bringing one back for a touchdown there. So they only put up really 17 points in that. One was on the first drive, and that was even as the Redskins seemed a little bit deflated toward the end of that game when Haskins was turning the ball over as well there. So this week, I think their defense absolutely gets exposed for how bad they are in the secondary, especially with all the talk this week. I don't know if you noticed or heard Kirk Cousins apologizing to Adam Thielen for not getting him the ball enough. I think this is the perfect week to do it, though. You apologize, and then this week, here's my love letter to you, Adam Thielen, from Kirk Cousins in the form of a 10-catch day. I'm going over on the number of catches for Adam Thielen. I think he and Stephon Diggs put up huge numbers this week off of play action especially, and I don't think the Giants will be able to stop the run. Also, Minnesota's defense is still really good. Everybody talking about, how they lost to the Bears. You're getting them. You're buying really low right now. The Bears, as you said last week, Chris, their defense is all world. I think this is the perfect spot for Minnesota to get back on track. Right. I think Giants come back to earth a little bit here, and I think they win this by 10 or more easy, the Vikings on the road. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
And like I said last week, I thought the Bears defense was the difference in that game last week. I agree with you. I'm not as confident as Kirk Cousins turning that corner this week as you are. So that scares me. But if they make him a game manager this week and use that play action off the run, the Giants aren't stopping the run. So when the Giants commit to stop the run, maybe he can use that play action and open them up. But I think the defense is just going to be too much for the rookie this week. I think he's going to face a real defense this week. I don't think he has yet. I think the magic runs out a little bit. And I just think that the defense on that team is lost. So, if Cousins in that offense in Minnesota is going to turn around, this is the week to do it. Trust me when I tell you the Giants' defense is bad.
Excellent. All right, with that, we'll go to the team that Minnesota played last week, the Chicago Bears. Yeah, they're in London, giving 5.5 to the Oakland Raiders. And Greg, you like the Bears in this one, despite the fact they're giving the points. Why?
I circled this at the beginning of the season to just make sure that I still like it. It's third straight road game for Oakland. They're coming off a big win last week on Indy. I think that was more Indy's defensive problems than really about Oakland doing well. I like betting against that situation, and the Bears look pretty good with Chase Daniels.
So what do you think about that, Chris?
I agree with everything he says, and I really like the Bears this week. The Jaguars, when teams first started going to London, they did that. They went down. They took in the sights. They enjoyed London. There's a reason why the Jaguars do this every year, and they've come down to a fine science of how they do it, and they've been winning pretty much most of the games down there. So I think they know what they're doing. First time the Raiders are down there, and I think they're going to be distracted, just like Greg said.
I think that's a great take on that one, and I think you're getting the Raiders coming off a high of their win over Indy, and Indy was in that game so many times that they had a lot of chances and kept turning the ball over, and I also think that just travel schedule has been brutal. We mentioned that they came to the East Coast, went back to Oakland, then went back to Indy. Now they're traveling over to London. That schedule is just too much. I think it finally catches up with them this week, and I actually like the offense for Chicago better with Chase Daniels than with Mr. Trubisky.
I do too.
I think he looks for Tariq Cohen a lot more, and I think Cohen is a game changer for them out of the backfield. They have a rapport, and I think that they're actually going to be a little bit better than with Trubisky when he's in there. I think Trubisky is in there because they used a really high draft pick on him, and I don't know that the difference is enough that I would say, okay, I'll start Chase Daniels over him, but I think that it is a slight upgrade when he's in there, and I wouldn't be surprised if they blow out the Raiders in this one. All right, next game you guys wanted to talk about. Chris, you like the Bucs and the Saints. Tampa Bay traveling to New Orleans. New Orleans -3. Bucs coming off that big win over the Rams outright as they hung double nickel on the reigning NFC champs, and the Saints coming off their primetime victory over the Dallas Cowboys in a defensive slobber knocker, a 12-10 game there down in the Big Easy. Chris, what do you like about the Saints?
Well, first of all, the Saints opened up at 5.5, and I loved them at 5.5, and now that they're down to 3.5, the last I saw them, I love them even more. The Saints last week, first of all, when Drew Brees went down, everybody's gut reaction was, okay, Teddy Bridgewater, Brees is going to be out about 6 weeks. Let's hope to go 3-3 and get Brees back. And I got to tell you, most teams, when a backup quarterback comes in, they just try and insert the backup quarterback into their plans. I love with what Sean Payton did last week, and he didn't try to do the same things they always did. If you looked at that offense, it was completely different than what they did with Brees. He geared it. He only had 1 week to plan, and he geared it to for what Teddy Bridgewater wanted to do. There were no big deep shots downfield. There was no stuff up the seam. He did all intermediate stuff. Was he a game manager? I don't want to call him a game manager, but he didn't try to do stuff out of his realm. They took that Drew Brees quote-unquote game plan out, put in a Teddy Bridgewater game plan. Yep, they didn't get in the end zone, but they did enough to win. So having a whole other week to plan with Teddy Bridgewater, and Sean Payton is a hell of a coach. I think he's a hell of a coach. I think he's going to do a little more this week to gear it around Teddy Bridgewater. I think maybe this week, with the extra week with Teddy, he puts in a couple of wrinkles now designed for Teddy. And the Saints the Buccaneers offense has been playing over their head. And now they have to travel to New Orleans, which they haven't been that great against individual matchups. And the Saints.
Wait, I'm throwing the challenge flag. Hold on, I'm throwing the challenge flag. Didn't the Bucs beat the Saints in New Orleans last year to start the season?
Oh yeah, they did. But what I'm trying to say is that they're only 3-7 against in those divisional matchups. They haven't fared well over the sample size.
Okay, I just want to make sure though. We got to make sure we're keeping you honest.
Right twice a day, Joe. But anyway, the Saints, they've covered the spread in 13 straight games since 2005.
Wow.
Versus the Saints versus the Bucs, and they're 12-1. Those are straight up. That's straight up, and they're 12-1 against the spread in those games. So how can you go against those? Go against those numbers.
Say those numbers. Say those numbers again, because those are huge.
So since October, okay, if you've been betting on the Saints in October since 2015, you got a couple of shekels in your pocket, because since 2015, the Saints have covered 13 straight games that they played in October, and in those games, they're 12-1 against the spread. 13 straight up. They've won all 13 games, and they're 12-1 against the spread in October games since 2015. Those are huge numbers. And like I said, I've been telling you the past couple of weeks, when you get those mediocre numbers, yeah, they can go any way. But when you get numbers that are heavily favored in one way, there's a reason why they're heavily favored in one way. And yeah, they can go south at any given time, but you got to go with the trend. So like I said, if you've been betting the Saints in October games since 2015, you've been making a pretty penny, and I don't think it's going to change this week against the Bucs.
I think that this is an interesting matchup because the Bucs definitely have exceeded expectations with that win against the Rams, and the fact that they hung 55 points on LA, I think that makes them a really popular pick among the public because the public likes those offensive teams. They've been a very interesting team this season overall. Went to Carolina and got that win when Cam Newton was clearly hurt. They are in a tough game the opening week against the 49ers. So I think that and then obviously that loss to the Giants, they really probably should be 3-1 right now, and you could make an argument they were really close to 4-0. Greg, I'm curious, where's your evaluation just on the Bucs at this point this season?
On the Bucs, I was thinking more about this handicap, and I was thinking that Teddy Bridgewater must be one hell of an October quarterback to have such good stats since 2015. Just playing, I totally agree with the Sean Payton. I love that he's changed up the game plan, let Kamara run with it a bunch more. The Bucs they're a tricky team, but when we're talking about coaching, right? I mean, obviously. Coaching and why the heck is his name escaping?
Bruce Arians.
Arians. Obviously, it's taken a little bit, right? But that's a big deal. What they just did with the Rams. So I do think that finally having a good head coach to work with. Our boy Jameis is, something that could potentially be good for his career.
I think that this one's going to be really interesting. I think sometimes the hardest bets to make are the best bets to make. And I think it's really hard to put the money on Teddy Bridgewater when he's the backup quarterback. And he didn't look great, right? Let's be honest. He hasn't looked great in either of these two games against the Seahawks or against the Cowboys. So really interesting, but that usually means that that's a right play if it's tough to put the money down. So I think what's really most impressed me about the Saints this season has been the way their defense is played. I thought they looked great Sunday night, obviously, against the Cowboys, and I thought they were undermanned, missing a bunch of players in that opening night against Houston as well when they managed to come back and get that. So in the division game, and the other thing is a lot's being made about Jameis Winston and what he's done this season. The defense played a huge role for the Bucs in the turnovers that they forced. Let's not forget, the defense scored 2 of those touchdowns and set the offense up in good situations a couple other times in that game. So while Jameis is getting a lot of credit for throwing those 4 touchdowns, he wasn't working against a lot in that game when he did get the ball. And Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have been out of this world. Should be an interesting matchup against that secondary. Chris, I think I'm right now. I'm going to lay off this one. If I do, I'll put the money on the Saints at home. But I'm going to have to look at this one a little bit more before I'm ready to commit. With that being said, the Wingfoot lock has been anything but. But we're going to turn that around. We're going to turn that around this week, and we are going with the Dallas Cowboys giving 3.5 as they host the Green Bay Packers. Chris, tell me why you're so big on the Cowboys this week.
Well, first of all, in regards to the Wingfoot lock, okay, even though we've been given a less percentage of winners as we want, if you follow all our games on the podcast, you're absolutely making money. Because we've been doing great on the podcast. We've just been putting the hashtag, unfortunately, each week on the wrong game. So stick with us on the podcast until we get back on track with the hashtag, because overall, you're still making money. Having said that, all right, now we're on to the Cowboys. So I want to go back to last week a second. When that line came out with the Cowboys last week against the Saints, and the Cowboys came out as -2.5, that screamed at me wrong line. One of the angles I like to play when doing this is sometimes lines pop off the page view that they're just wrong. They're skewed in one way or another. And usually when the line looks fishy, it's fishy. You got to remember, people, Vegas does this for a living. They're always going to know a little bit more than us, and they're in this to make money. They're not in this to lose money. So when that line opened up at 2.5, what I said to myself was, they just came off 3 huge wins, the Cowboys. The offenses look great. They put 30-plus points up in all those games. Granted, they didn't play any real team, but still, you're coming now to New Orleans, where you've won before, in an atmosphere that you've handled before, against a backup quarterback. I personally thought that line should have been Cowboys -4, maybe 3.5. The fact that it was 2.5 told me something just wasn't right, and I proved my point because it wasn't right. They came in, the offense was shut down, the offensive line got stopped.
Again, that line told me everything I needed to know before that game started. And I'm in the same situation now, because now the line opened up against the Packers, Cowboys -4.5. Now, as a guy who's been betting for a very long time, I'm saying to myself, okay, the Cowboys played 3 soft teams and put up 30-plus points. Now they play a decent team with a backup quarterback, and they went stagnant. They lost to 4 field goals. So now you think, okay, here comes big bad Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, who've been able to stick the knife in the Cowboys, you know what, more than one time in the past few years, and they're opening up as 4.5-point favorites. I mean, I don't know how that can be. That's a wrong line, and the bettors are telling you it's a wrong line because it's already down to 3.5, which tells me that Vegas wants you to jump on the pack. They want you to see that, and they like to go with the general public, the general bettor, and they like you to take that first initial reaction and jump on it without doing the research and without thinking. Once you do the research and you think, that's when you gear towards the Cowboys, and this is why. The Cowboys are 9-1 straight up and 6-3 at home against the spread in their last 10 games at home. And the glaring stat that personally I didn't know, the Packers are 1-9 straight up, 1-9, 3-6-1 against the spread as road dogs in their last 10 games. Those are big numbers that I did not know, and the Packer team is not any better now than it's been in the last 10 games. It's actually worse now. Their receiving core is non-existent, and this, for these reasons, is why I'm confident this week in putting the hashtag on the Wingfoot lock with the Cowboys.
Lock it up, he says. All right, so for the audience out there, I just want to explain the Jedi mind trick that Chris just pulled on you, and how he's he's playing chess with the bookmakers at Vegas. He's Bobby Fishering it over here. So he says they want you to think with the initial line to go and play the Packers. You got to take the Packers plus 4.5. But when that got bet down, he's saying that was a fishy line. It shouldn't have been that high. And now they jumped at the bait. They moved the line down, and so you are getting a deal with the Cowboys plus 3.5 right now. Greg, before I weigh in, go ahead. What are your thoughts on this one?
It's Devontae Adams. I don't know if he's playing. I think that's significant. Chris was saying before, Gallup is coming back, right? So Dallas is getting a little healthy. Green Bay is getting healthy. So from that side of things, I don't put a ton of value in the wide receiver spot. I'm going to enjoy the game. Don't have a feel either way. I'm not reading the tea leaves like Chris is with the line moves and everything like that. So I'm good with it. I like it. I think it's a good selection. And, I'm not going to root any certain way, but I like the pick.
All right, before we go any further, let me give you some credit here. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening at home, it was probably around maybe 7:45 a week ago on Thursday. Chris and I, in our group text message, got a cryptic text from one Gregory Hoyle telling us, Eagles outright, get on it, get wet. This is the pick of the week. About halfway through the game, no, not even, maybe about halfway through the second quarter, we get another text message saying, no chance Eagles win this game outright. And then in the morning, we get a text message.
0%.
There was a 0% chance. So not even you're saying there's a chance, Dumb and Dumber style, 0% chance the Eagles win the game outright. And then in the morning, we get a text message, never a doubt. Never a doubt.
Never a doubt, my friend.
Oh, man. I have to say that had I not been tied up at the time, I would have been on there with you and probably would have been going through the same roller coaster, because it's not every day you get a text message that says, jump on this right now. And then Aaron Rodgers can't score twice from the 3-yard line. And the Eagles somehow win, and they win outright, and Greg Hoyle was on it. So I come away from that game thinking that, one, their defense, the Packers' defense, isn't as good as we had thought in the first couple weeks. I think they played some teams. Obviously, we've seen Minnesota's offense struggle lately. We know Denver's offense has been nothing. Chicago's offense hasn't done anything to wow you. Even when they put up 31 points, that was off 5 turnovers from Washington. So they hadn't played a really good offensive team this season. Yes, they have Aaron Rodgers, but he hasn't done much offensively this season, and now you're taking away his best weapon in Devontae Adams, who was having a great night against the Eagles before he went down, and I think that this could be a real struggle for Green Bay. Also, if you remember, Dak, in his first playoffs against the Packers, was dueling with Aaron Rodgers, and I think there's probably a little bit of Dak that wants to best Aaron Rodgers out there. You mentioned Gallup coming back. That was a big thing for me. I think you could clearly see they missed him against the Saints, and I think that played a big role. And, Chris, I'm all aboard with the Dallas Cowboys this week for the Wingfoot lock. Take them at 3.5.
Just let me throw one little nugget in there, Joe.
Go ahead.
Don't take lightly guys who go to new teams who want to beat their old team. I think you're going to get a big game out of Randall Cobb this week. I think he wants to beat his own team. I think they're going to be motivated to get a win for Cobb. And again, last week when Cooper couldn't get open and Cooper was having his problems, there wasn't another outlet. Gallup has been putting up big numbers. I think it's going to make a big difference. I think the Cowboys are going to have a good win this week.
Did you say, when you said one more kernel, right, you were thinking of a kernel of corn for corn on the cob?
I actually said one more nugget.
All right. Maybe that was just my head. Damn, I was trying to give you the credit there. That was where my head went. I love it. Listen, on that note, gentlemen, I will review one more time, and let me see if I can do this, because a couple picks this week for us. Christopher Portente likes the Pats laying 15.5 as they head to Washington to take on the Redskins. Greg Hoyle likes the under in that game of 43. We are all on the Chicago Bears laying 5.5 as they head to London to take on the Oakland Raiders. Chris is on the Saints -3 as they play host to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we are all on the Arizona Cardinals +3.5 as they head to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. And the Wingfoot lock of the week this week, the Dallas Cowboys -3.5 as they host the Green Bay Packers. Don't forget to follow Greg. Greg, what are you picking this year? 60 what?
We're at 63% at hashtag according to Hoyle. Things happen late. Follow the hashtag according to Hoyle right up into game time, because if something happens late, I'm putting it out there on a tweet, that means I like it and I'm on it.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Wingfoot Locks. Nothing but winners this week as we are going to propel into quarter number 2 of the NFL season. For Chris Portente, Greg Hoyle, and Joe Masseri, that's me. Thanks for listening, everybody. And remember, until next time, it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether or not you cover the spread. Talk to you next week, everybody.